Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. It's a proud day for India. Indian astronaut group captain Shubhanshu Shukla has safely returned to Earth, marking the successful conclusion of a truly groundbreaking mission to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Dragon spacecraft carrying group captain Shukla and 3 other astronauts on the Axim 4 mission made a splashdown, landing off the coast of California at 3:01 p.m. Indian Standard Time on Tuesday, the 15th of July. The return journey from the International Space Station took nearly 22.5 hours. The crew undocked from the station around 4:50 p.m. IST on Monday. During their 2-week stay in orbit, the X4 team completed more than 300 orbits of Earth and conducted several critical microgravity experiments. For Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, this mission was more than just a personal milestone. It marks a defining moment in India's space history. He becomes the first Indian ever to visit the International Space Station and only the second Indian to journey into space after Rakesh Sharma's iconic 1984 mission. Hailing the mission, Prime Minister Narendra Modi posted on social media, and I quote, "I join the nation in welcoming Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla as he returns to Earth from his historic mission to space. As India's first astronaut to have visited the International Space Station, he has inspired a billion dreams through his dedication, courage and pioneering spirit. It marks another milestone towards our own human space flight mission, Gaganyaan." So as the nation beams with pride, we look back at this extraordinary journey, the science, the symbolism and the road it paves for India's space future. What do Shubhanshu Shukla's achievements mean for Gaganyaan, and how is India preparing for the next leap in human space flight? To take the conversation further, I'm joined by 3 very distinguished guests. So let me begin the program by welcoming and introducing our esteemed panelists. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the program today Dr. N.C. Bhat. He's a retired scientist, ISRO. He was selected as payload scientist for Space Shuttle in 1985, but the Challenger explosion in January 1986 had cancelled that program. Dr. Bhat, it's a great privilege for me to have you with us on Sansad TV to discuss the journey of the second Indian to space. I'm also delighted to welcome Dr. W. Selvamurthy. He's President, Amity University and former DG DRDO. Dr. Selvamurthy, always a pleasure to welcome you on my program. I'm also privileged to welcome on the program today Dr. Ajey Lele, DDG, Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis. It's always been a privilege to welcome Dr. Lele for his nuanced perspective. So once again, a big welcome to you, Dr. Lele, on Sansad TV. It's a huge day for India, a historic milestone when it comes to India's space odyssey. Let me begin the program with you, Mr. Bhat. First, your thoughts, because you were trained by NASA, you came quite close to becoming one of India's space travelers. However, unfortunately, that mission could not take off. Today, years later, seeing Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla return safely after spending about 18 days at the International Space Station, becoming the first Indian to do so, bringing back not just data from space, but dreams for every India and India's space journey. What does this mean to you personally, and how do you think, how significant is it for India's space future?
Thank you, Ms. Teena. First of all, let me thank Shubhanshu Shukla for achieving the greatest milestone for the Gaganyaan. In fact, it starts with the Gaganyaan has started long back. And I was selected long back in 1984, nearly, I don't know whether Shubhanshu Shukla had, he was born. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was nearly 40 years back. But the requirement was different. At that time, I was supposed to go into by the space shuttle. You know, now it has been set aside because of some reason. But otherwise, the actual requirement was different. We have to carry one satellite called INSAT-1C in that cargo bay and then leave it to that low Earth orbit, which will take its own propulsion and go to the geostationary orbit. That was the requirement. Of course, at that time, they offered one scientist from ISRO. So that was the beginning. So as usual, it is you have to be scientist, but you should also be able to endure the rigors of space travel. that was the requirement. So I underwent a lot of tests, medical tests, and whether it is the psychological test which they wanted in NASA wanted, and I was also fortunate enough to get selected, let us say. And I could quote that Mr. Rakesh Sharma was one of the panelists for the selection. Anyway, that was very interesting. So when I was selected, I was supposed to go to NASA. NASA, we 2+ medical experts from Institute of Aviation Medicine. They accompanied us, and we were selected, both of us were selected as payload specialist. It was not called astronaut payload in the category called payload scientist. We were supposed to do our own payloads, and plus see once it is left to the orbit, the satellite, we have another 6 days to perform some of the the tasks.
Right.
So whether microgravity experiments, yoga experiment, Indian space food, tasting and giving our feedback. There are many such, and photography. In fact, one of the interesting things was photography. In fact, the photography of this one in the night, where a lot of lightning happens in some of the areas. Why it is so? In fact, one of the things was the lightning happens mainly in the that South Africa region. I don't know why. I mean, that is the thing. So they wanted to do some studies. They wanted to do microgravity experiments on metal melting, etc. So that was the experiments. But the rigors of training was very interesting. So I was trained actually in India, at Institute of Aviation Medicine. We were not pilots like Shubhanshu Shukla. So the space shuttle was supposed to be as good as carrying, going on an aeroplane. That's what Rakesh Sharma was.
Of course, a lot has changed since that time in terms of the approach, in terms of the finances, in terms of also the expectations of 1.4 billion Indians. So I'll get back to the kind of training that Shubhanshu Shukla perhaps would have also undergone. But in terms of the experiments also that he and the EXIM-4 crew conducted during their 18-day stay at the International Space Station. Dr. Selvamurthy, your thoughts on this historic day for India, the Indian space science. We all waited with bated breath when the undocking happened on Monday, and today when the deorbit burn was taking place, and we were all glued to our TV screens. We're so glad, and it's been a moment of pride for every Indian that Shubhanshu Shukla has returned safely to Earth, and he brings back with him a lot of hope, a lot of expectations. He's defined a new chapter for India's space journey, but at the same time, he's moved us closer towards our own human space flight mission. Your thoughts on this important, significant milestone, sir?
Thank you, Teena, for having me on the show. And it's yet another very important milestone in the history of Indian space science and technology. And this India is a country of aspiration now. It's an aspiring India with 1.4 billion people aspiring to assume the leadership role in many areas, and then moving towards the Viksit Bharat, the vision our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has given to the country. So in this is a yet another important milestone in the space sector. So I would consider that first, the satisfying event is to see our Gaganyaan Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla spending 18 days in the sojourn in the International Space Station, coming out very successfully, conducting valuable experiments over there, coming out with rich experience of piloting the whole Axiom 4 mission. So this is going to be a great input into our Gaganyaan mission as well. I would like to put the perspectives in the right direction, because the whole thing started when our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, visited United States in the year 2023, just 2 years ago.
Right.
So when he visited, he met the President of United States, and then that is where the whole program was envisioned, that we must have our own Indian astronaut or Indian Gaganyatri getting into International Space Station. So now it's a reality today, it has happened. And then the Indian Space Research Organization, the scientists, technologists, and the mission planners, everybody got into the program, selected the right person, trained him properly, put him with all the wherewithal, and also given him the task of undertaking objectives for the mission and doing experiments over there. So all these mission objectives have been achieved by our very the brilliant Gaganyatri Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, who has come with his rich experience, and it was so exciting to see. Here this splashing down of the Dragon capsule, and then also being recovered and being supported by him coming out of the capsule. And now he will be now in the process of rehabilitation. This event is very important because of three reasons. One is the first Indian to be in International Space Station, one very important milestone. The second is the second Indian to be in space after 41 years.
Right.
So that's the second thing. Third one is the Axiom 4 mission, which is an international private mission, which is now done by the SpaceX Axiom 4 team and also the NASA. And working with ISRO and other partners, that we were able to execute this international mission. ISRO played a very important role. So it's a learning experience for mission planning, operation. When Gaganyaan mission is going to be there in the next 2 years, 2027, it's already slated for Indian space, the mission to be executed in the form of Gaganyaan. So all this, the experiential learning which he brings in, the experimental learning which he has done through the experimentation on the agriculture, and also looking at how does the microalgae behave, which can offer food, it can offer oxygen, it can offer fuel, the biofuel which can come from there. And also the cyanobacterium, which he carried, how does it behave in terms of cell division, cell growth, multiplication, and the behavior, cell behavior in microgravity environment. Then his own physiological experiments of muscle degeneration, how does it happen? Can we prevent osteoporosis, which is one of the major the problem among the women,
Right.
postmenopausal, as well as many people with calcium deficiency and so on. So this is yet another experiment carried out by him. Then he has also monitored the life support technologies, which is wearable devices which will monitor the vital health signs. So this is also, it has been done. And then, so
Right.
we will be learning from all this. And some more experiments, by 60 experiments have been conducted in the Axiom 4.
Absolutely. And how will these learnings help us in our own human spaceflight mission is something that we will discuss in due course of the program. Dr. Selvamurthy, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Dr. Lele here for his perspective. Dr. Lele, your thoughts on what Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla said in his farewell speech from the International Space Station, something that Dr. Selvamurthy also reiterated, that a lot has changed in terms of our intent and our approach towards how we look at the future of India's space science. So this, the success of this mission reflects not just our seriousness and the intent and the right approach, no matter the finances, but at the same time, how it also reflects a more assertive and a more confident India. You would recall what Group Captain said, that ऊपर से भी भारत बहुत महत्वाकांक्षी दिखता है, बहुत confident दिखता है. So looking at his statement and something that that Prime Minister Modi has also reiterated again and again, how would you look at the success of this Axiom 4 mission, the learnings that Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla brings along with him, and how these learnings will be extremely beneficial for our own Gaganyaan mission?
I think this is a very important mission for India. And I must make a mention over here that we are in the right time in history, and India is grabbing the opportunities which are available. Because if you see, the concept of a space-based internet is a recent concept. So the number of satellites which have been launched, the concept of a constellation satellites, all other concepts have just come into being during last 4 to 5 years. And now India is trying to grab the opportunities which have been made available because of these things. Today, the SpaceX Axiom 4, along with NASA and ISRO, have undertaken this mission. So this also shows that how good intended people, whether it is a private company or a public enterprise, if they join hands together, what a success can be. I think from that perspective, one can say that India is actually encashing what is happening at a global level, particularly in the domain of a space, both from a state perspective as well as from a private industry perspective. As far as this mission is concerned, I think one has to look at this mission not in isolation, because this is not just one of the missions that Shubham Shukla has gone there and got back. He has undertaken certain types of experimentations which has been already explained. So how one can put this mission into a context of India's space adventurism, if I'm using a correct word, for a couple of years hence. India has got plans to send the Gaganyaan mission in next 2 years or so. Subsequently, India is planning to establish its own space station also. Then there is a plan of sending Indian to the surface of the moon by 2040. So when all these plans are looked, we require to prepare to undertake all these missions in a very successful and a systematic fashion. So definitely you need to know more about how the health of an astronaut remains out in a microgravity atmosphere, what sort of agriculture activities which could be undertaken, whether it is a space station or subsequently after say a couple of decades when we go to the surface of the moon. So you should understand all those things. Then the most important aspect is that when you go to the space, to carry anything to the space is a very costly affair. So as far as food is concerned, as far as water is concerned, as far as your fuel is concerned, if you can make something available out over there into the space itself, then it's going to boost your space program very significantly. And I think this mission should be looked from all these perspectives, where we are making investments into the technology at the right time in history. Number two is that Shubhanshu Shukla's learnings are going to be extremely essential and helpful for our Gaganyaan program and subsequently for our own space station program also. So what he has learned over here is going to help, I can say with confidence, the generations of astronauts which India will produce in coming few years.
Dr. Lele, the success of this mission makes me curious to ask you this question on the strategic and geopolitical implications of India now entering the human spaceflight domain.
I think as far as strategic implications are concerned, one has to understand that space is for the peace. There are certain amount of diversions which could be there where people are using space for certain amount of strategic purposes also. And if one can use that technology to enhance your military capabilities, so be it. Means there is nothing wrong into it. But as far as weaponization of a space is concerned, India is totally against it. And Indian armed forces are using space technologies for the benefit of Army, Navy and Air Force. And that's a done deal. Means you're not going against any sort of a global norms or a behavior in space is concerned. But more importantly, I will put this at two levels. One is that it boosts India's soft power significantly. In today's days in time, war is not an option. So you need to ensure that your country makes a progress and there is certain amount of a soft power potential towards it. So India's activities, India's expansion of its scientific base actually gathers quite amount of things as far as India's soft power projection is concerned. And other thing is that as far as the investments into technologies from a commercial point of view, this also boosts us up. If you can see that there are a lot of clients which ISRO is actually refusing because ISRO doesn't have that sort of a wherewithal to carry the satellites of each and every country in the world. But there are so many people are getting attracted. Why these people are getting attracted? Because ISRO has emerged as a major agency which is in a very cost effective but in a systematic and a successful fashion can launch satellites, can help the countries in various other domains of a space where the countries do not have that sort of a proficiency. So I think this mission has got two strategic aspects. One is a soft power projection and other is tremendous boost to India's private infrastructure, which is slowly emerging right now as far as domain of space is concerned.
Certainly. Mr. Bhat, I'll come back to you and try and understand, because the aspirations are high. While we are celebrating the safe return and the experiential learning that Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla brings with him as the first Indian astronaut to have stayed at the International Space Station, what, according to you, are some of the technical challenges that we must prepare for in ensuring crew safety, payload integrity in such human space flights? Something that when we say that we want our own missions like this to succeed, which are the areas that we need to be particularly focused on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In fact, I will try to answer my best way. See, the space travel is not as simple as we think. Especially when it is involved with the human being, you have to take aspects of, contingency, every aspect. In fact, from the start of the point to till the return, there has to be either redundancy or some rescue operations. In fact, you would have seen when you launch it itself, at the time of launch itself, there will be one escape tower, which will take you if there are any problems on the rocket. And when it is on the way to space, there could be a lot of challenges. That will be, that precise timing and the engine firing. If it fails, we will have a problem. So wherever such thing happens, we should have redundancy, we should have fail-safe systems, we should have higher factor of safety. In fact, to keep that, the space item, you need very large amount of fuel as well as mass. See, to reduce that, generally they go for just required factor of safety. So that has to be enhanced, or fail-safe conditions has to be made. So what I understand is there will be challenges at every moment. In fact, I should appreciate that our Indian space, ISRO is trying to make Gaganyaan, the launch vehicles, the return capsules, with utmost care and utmost testing, design and testing, so that, we could come back safely. In fact, there are a lot of strategies involved. In fact, that is one of the reasons why space shuttle was abandoned. You might have seen that during launch, if something happens, there is no way the crew can escape. So that's how right. I think you are all aware.
Okay. So as we prepare for long duration missions and something like a Gaganyaan, Dr. Selvamurthy, what kind of technologies or mechanisms will be crucial, especially in context of our own Gaganyaan, something that we are eagerly waiting for, or even international deep space exploration, something that India is quite ambitious about?
The first human factors, when you select the astronauts or Gaganyaan 3, we look at the selection procedures which has already been made now, the physical, the anthropometric dimensions, physiological standards, they have to meet with the endurance, muscle power, and all this is tested for the physiological standards. Then they look at the psychological resilience to see that. So when you are selecting the person, there are so many rigorous test procedures and standards which one need to meet. That's the first thing. Then having selected the people, they train so that they know how to escape if there's a crisis, how do they manage. So the training in terms of adaptability to microgravity environment. So there's a lot of methods of simulating the similar environment, hypogravity environment in Earth itself. So they have undergone. In fact, Shubhanshu went to 4 places, including NASA, Axiom 4, and see the other also even the JAXA European agency. So they give a lot of training, very rigorous training to adapt as well as to address the crisis management as well as safety issues. So this is the second part is the training. Third part which is given is the space suit and the life support technologies which they provide. When they go into the space, when they ascend up, what type of the reclined position of the seats, so the ergonomic designs as well as the reason is that when the spacecraft goes up, there's a lot of blood pooling happens in the lower part. To avoid this, the hypotension leading to syncope, orthostatic syncope, that they keep them on the reclined position. So these are all very important issues. Then the food, what type of food has to be given? Because it should give the energy, should not be too voluminous, and is easy to eat. Even the packaging, can it be edible packaging so that you can eat the packaging as well? So there's a lot of thing about the food part of it.
Right.
Then the waste management inside. So this is yet another important issues. How do we manage the human waste as well as the other material waste which will be accumulating over there? So these are all various challenges. Then they also condition themselves to inside how do they conduct themselves in terms of keeping the isometric, the muscle power, so that when they come down, there won't be a very serious skeletal degeneration happening. Similarly, cardiovascular deconditioning, which occurs in low gravity environment, how do you compensate? So these trainings are also given to the people in space, inside the space station, that how do they counter all these adverse effects. Then the radiation. So even in this experiment, Shubhanshu Shukla has carried out the dosimetry, the total radiation accumulated by an individual. So the dosimetry of the radiation, because you have the cosmic radiation, solar radiation. So all this is going to be there. So the major stress will be working in a claustrophobic, closed environment, sensory deprivation, monotony, fear of the unknown. All this will be impinging on the Gaganyaan. So even in this Axiom 4, they have monitored this cognitive monitoring and also virtual reality, their voice recognition, AI application. All this have been done in this experiment as well. Radiation has been monitored. So all this wealth of information will feed into Gaganyaan mission.
So multiple aspects, multiple fronts on which the astronauts are to be trained, and physiologically, mentally, the training that is imparted to them before their the last lap that marks their journey to space. But since we are talking about our future readiness and our vision, Dr. Lele, we aspire to launch our mission from Indian soil. So while we take pride in Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla's mission, it did not happen from Indian soil. And this is something that I read on ISRO's social media page today, that the next mission is going to be launched from Indian soil, and that is particularly which sets our ambitious targets. So while we are imparting the training to the astronauts, on the infrastructure front, how are we scaling up our efforts? So, for example, infrastructure related to launch, tracking, re-entry systems to sustain human spaceflight programs. Where are we? What kind of progress have we made? And what is it that will be required for a successful Gaganyaan mission in the next 2 to 3 years?
I think this is a very interesting question which you have asked. Basically, because till date, what we have seen is that astronaut goes abroad, sits in a spacecraft which has been developed by somebody else, and goes to the International Space Station, which is again not an Indian space station. But when we are going to plan a Gaganyaan program, there is a lot amount of planning which has already gone into it. Over the years, if you critically analyze ISRO space programs, like in today's case particularly, the major challenge was supposed to be when you enter the Earth's atmosphere. Because when you enter the Earth's atmosphere, the temperatures are to the tune of around 2000 degrees Celsius also. So your thermal shield has to really work very fast. So under those circumstances, particularly to develop heat shield and thermal shield technologies, one has to actually master that art if you actually want to send the humans to the space. So if you see ISRO space program, there is an experiment called SRE, Space Recovery Vehicle, that ISRO has done way back in 2006, 2007. So ISRO is at it developing various technologies which finally will be assembled as far as your Gaganyaan mission is concerned. So I can say that since 2005 onwards, there are various technologies which are getting developed by ISRO, which will come very handy now. As far as Gaganyaan mission is concerned, we have got a plan in place. We will first launch two missions, which will be uncrewed missions. So that means we are testing our vehicle. As it was rightly pointed out, various technologies need to be developed. And the most important technology which is required to be developed is that if you launch a mission and during the launch phase something amiss happens, then the crew should not get affected to it. So there is something known as a crew escape model. ISRO has already tested it once. They are going to test it again. Then we have tested various other technologies which are required as far as the Gaganyaan mission is concerned. We are planning to launch two missions earlier where the crew will not be there. Then we already have created a robotic equipment called Vyomitra. So one of the missions which will be launched will have this robot sitting over there instead of humans. And after we are fully satisfied with these things, then only we will be launching the human mission. The vehicle which is to be launched this mission called LMV3, already we are testing on it. LMV3 has perfectly worked as far as robotic mission launches are concerned. Now you have to consider that vehicle as a human rated vehicle. So for that matter, certain amount of experimentations are required to be done. So I can say that when you are talking of a Gaganyaan mission, it is not a plan of 1 or 2 years. It is a plan of ISRO which is evolving over last 15 to 20 years, where step by step they have developed various technologies. And when you are finally launching a mission, all these technologies in some form or other will come very handy.
Absolutely. And we can now say with Gaganyaan ahead, sky is not the limit, but just the beginning for India and its space sojourn. Time allows me to take up only that much on the program, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today with your insights and talking to us about how Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla's return marks a new chapter in India's space journey and our future program, especially the human spaceflight missions that we're all keenly waiting for. Once again, a huge thank you for joining us on Sansad TV. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.